Hello, everyone. I'm just going to give just a little bit for folks to join, and then I'm just going to hop in because I know and I realize some of you will watch this later. Today is the day you've been waiting for when it comes to talking about being intentional. So today is being intentional to rest. Rest. We need rest. We don't get enough rest for most of us. Let's take a look at Mark 6:31. We'll back up to verse 30. And the apostles gathered themselves together unto Jesus and told him all things, both what they had done and what they had taught. And he said to them, this Jesus talking to them, come ye yourselves apart into a desert place and rest for a while. For there were many coming and going, and they had no leisure so much as to eat. Did you realize 250 times in the Bible the word rest is mentioned? Now, sometimes it means putting your trust in something, like rest in the Lord, wait patiently for him. It could be peace, resting, putting your rest in him to know that he's in control. But today, we are going to talk about rest as defined in the online dictionary as to cease from work or movement in order to relax, refresh oneself, or to recover strength. A lot of times people will tell you when they work out and they do weights and stuff, they don't do it every day because you need a day for your muscles to recover. So that's sort of what we're going to talk about today. Genesis, God set that example for us. If you read Genesis 1 and 2 over and over throughout the creation story, it'll say, and there was evening, and there was morning, the third day, the fourth day, the fifth day. But on the seventh day, it said God rested from his activities. We need rest in every aspect of our life. We need rest physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and even socially. And it's more than just getting extra sleep or taking a nap, although those things are really great, I will say, because I'm a firm believer in those Sunday afternoon naps. But Jesus basically is saying to them to set yourself apart, come away from the crowd, stop what you're doing for just a little bit, and rest, because they weren't even taking care of themselves. And so I wanted to give you a little bit of context as what was happening in that time when they were doing that. The disciples had just been through a super busy season. Jesus had sent them out 2 by 2. And if you go back to the beginning of chapter 6, around verse 7, it says he sent them forth by 2 and gave them power over unclean spirits, told them don't take anything for your journey, no bread, until if they bless you, they bless you, and if they don't receive you, shake the dust. And if you get to verse 12, and it says, and they went out and preached that men should repent, and they cast out many devils and anointed with oil many that were sick and healed them. So they've been pretty busy. They've been about doing what they were supposed to do. They were preaching, they were healing, they were tending to the ministry that God had given them, right? And then right after that, if you're following along, then there's the whole story of Herod's feast and the beheading of John the Baptist. So here they are doing all this great work and seeing all these great things take place as they're being obedient to the call of God. And then this terrible thing happens where, very much a hero of the faith, John the Baptist, was arrested and beheaded. And so then we get to verse 30, and the disciples come to Jesus and they tell him everything that's been going on, right? They tell him everything that they did, everything that they taught, and they I don't doubt that they were probably exhausted, right? So doesn't that sound familiar? It sounds a lot like my life. It probably sounds a lot like your life, and definitely our current culture. So whether you're in the church or not, really, we are way too busy. I once heard an acronym that someone told me that busy was bondage under Satan's yoke. We get so busy that it keeps us distracted from the things of God. We are running here and there, going to kids' activities, doing our own activities, going to work, running errands, doing the grocery store, going to exercise. We got school, we got doctor's appointments, church events, miscellaneous events, and all the while still trying to do all those things and run and maintain our own families in our own home. I'm just exhausted just trying to think of all of those different examples. There seems to always be something going on, and sometimes you just want to shout or scream, stop, stop. Well, maybe Jesus just knew exactly what they needed. So they come back from their work, and basically Jesus tells them to stop. Not permanently, but in order for them to get some rest and take care of themselves. Look to their own needs and get refreshed. He instructs them to separate themselves to a desert place. Now, I don't know about you, and I'm not going to camp here, but there's not a whole lot going on in the desert. Really, just a bunch of sand and a lot of hot heat, and not a whole lot of place where you think you would get a respite, right? A time away or a place to refresh. So I don't really know why Jesus told them to come to a desert place, but I have a theory. And so what I'd like to propose to you is, instead of sending them to a tropical resort, he tells them to go to the desert. And it might just be that he chose the desert because the desert offered no distractions. There were no other people there. There were no places or distractions there. And even with that, for their daily needs and food and stuff like that, their focus was still going to be on Jesus to meet all their needs, without having to be self-sufficient or rely on somebody else to supply them. They were still removing themselves from activity, but they're still dependent on the Lord to meet their needs. And then if you keep reading in Mark, something really exciting happens, really interesting. So after this rest, though very short-lived it seems, the disciples and the people who followed them got to experience God's divine provision in the desert. So it says, as they were leaving, the people followed them. Like they ran ahead of them to to see what was going on so that they could be with Jesus. And Jesus had compassion on them when these folks followed him. And so after some point of teaching him, the disciples tell Jesus to send them away. You know, these people need to go and eat. They need to, be refreshed. And because we don't have anything. And Jesus said, you feed them. And they said, with what? What are we going to feed them with? So Jesus basically asked them, well, what do you got? And he said, we got 5 loaves and 2 fish. And so in the middle of all of that, Jesus has them sit down. He puts those disciples right back to work after they've had a refreshing, puts them right back to work. And when they are obedient and they give Jesus the little that they have, he performs a miracle, and he feeds all 5,000 of those people. And Scripture only says it's men. It makes a reference to it about 5,000 men, but there were women and children with those guys. So there's no telling how many people really that 5 loaves and 2 fish fed. Right after that, and after that miracle, and because it was probably so many people, and there was a huge effort to pass out all that and then take it back up, Jesus puts them in a boat and sends them away again while he dismisses the people. So, what are we going to do with this? What's the so what of all of this other than, okay, Cathy Jo, I get it. I need to rest. 2 takeaways I want you to get today. 1, be intentional to rest. Set aside specific time when you're not serving or actively involved in something. Rest, disconnect so that you can come back stronger and refreshed. Sundays are my day. It's usually our household day when we disconnect. We put our phones on Do Not Disturb in the afternoon. And after lunch, it's a holy nap. Because I need those things. It's been a busy week. Usually our weeks are very full. And I need that time physically for my body, my mind, and my emotions just to level set and rest. Literally to rest. Second thing, don't get stranded in the desert. Get back to work after you rest. It is so easy once you sit down, so to speak, to stay there. It's harder to get back up and get back into routine. And this is especially true if you're not routinely resting and taking time to set aside to rest. There is danger in that, because that's when you get burnt out. And when you get burnt out and you let yourself go too long from rest, it is so difficult to be motivated to get back into the things of God and get back into the routines of things that you need to be doing on a daily basis. That's why it's so important that you routinely, on purpose, rest. Some books, I think that were out, a book that was out some years ago that a friend of mine, Heath, had talked to me about, is taking a Sabbath. And it could be a day, it could be a time, but it's a specific, on purpose time that you set aside to just disconnect and to rest. The disciples were going to go let the people go home, but Jesus commanded that they feed them. And what they replied with, what are we going to feed them with? And when they offered their small offering, Jesus gave them a miracle. And look at this. This is really exciting. In verse 44, and they that did eat of the loaves, go back up. Verse 42, and they did all eat, not some of them, but all eat, and were filled. And they took up 12 baskets full of the fragments and of the fishes. And they that did eat of the loaves were about 5,000 men. So because the disciples were obedient, and they rested, and they went back to work, the refreshing and the miracle wasn't just for the disciples. It was for everybody who was there, who was present. So whether you're a leader or whether you're a follower, it is important that you rest, especially though if you're a leader, because when you take that time to step back and to rest, then you are not only the one that's going to benefit, but also the people that you're ministering to, also the people that you're working with, and your family and your friends are going to benefit because you took time to disconnect, and you're going to come back and be stronger than you were before. So do you see it? I mean, do you really see it? The disciples were obedient, and as a result, everyone ate and were filled. Okay, so maybe I've got a third takeaway. When we're all obedient and intentional to rest, we are not the only ones that benefit. The people around us then get to experience God working in us and through us. So, set aside time routinely to rest. Be sure to get back to work. Don't stay there. And then watch God do great things in and through you and with the people around you. God bless. Have a good day.